Today, I would like to share a story with you. As I put on my makeup, I'm going to talk about my experience of mental and emotional abuse from an ex-partner, and how I realized I was in an abusive relationship. I met someone online who I thought was a good person, but had a lot of mental issues. I think he thought a relationship would solve all those problems. I thought being with him would help him to change and grow, and he would be happy, but that didn't happen. It seemed that the more I did for him, the less satisfied he was, and the less happy I was. Pretty soon, I didn't know who I was anymore. I completely lost sight of who I really am. I wanted someone to embrace who I was, flaws, disability, and all. He made me believe he would love me and accept me for who I was, but he was a smooth talker. It was all an act. I figured if I could be loyal to him and accept him for his flaws and his past mistakes, then I would get all the love I asked for in return. I couldn't have been more wrong. Being on the autism spectrum, I figured he understood me because he had a sibling with the same disability as me. He did not accept it at all. The thing is, it wasn't until later in the relationship, when I never knew any of the red flags I had missed in the very beginning. I wanted to go back to school, so he looked everywhere to find a place near the school so we could be close. Due to certain circumstances, nobody would take him. He ended up moving into a rooming house that turned out to be a horrible place, so he ended up moving in with me into my college rooming house. I didn't realize that was a big red flag, but he had nowhere else to go. His family moved away, and he didn't want to leave me. That's when things began to go rocky. I started getting calls and text messages between classes from him saying a friend of his saw me talking to another guy when I wasn't. They had no physical proof I was even with anyone. Pretty soon, every single day was filled with arguments about who I was with and where I was going. All I was trying to do was go to class and meet up with classmates to work on projects. Then COVID hit. I had to stop attending classes in person. It was stressful enough trying to keep up with this college program that was already too fast-paced for me. I needed a lot of extra help, so not being able to learn hands-on classes in person made it even harder. I ended up quitting the program because I was so stressed out. I think my partner used this as an opportunity to get his way. He convinced me to move away with him up north, 5 hours away from my family. I didn't want to. My parents didn't want me to either. But he convinced me that life would be wonderful there for us. He convinced me that my parents were wrong and controlling me, that they were abusing me emotionally and financially. I already had a rocky relationship with my mom, so he used that to split us apart even more. Why did I stay for so long? Because I genuinely thought it was love. I thought love and relationships didn't come without pain. I just didn't expect to be sad or angry all the time. I did everything I could to make him happy, and nothing was ever good enough. The worst thing he said to me was he felt I didn't love him. After everything I did, telling my family off, moving 5 hours away from them just to be with him, giving up my hopes and wishes to make him happy, and he felt I didn't love him. I felt so crushed. The man who wanted to marry me, who promised me the world, who would make my dreams come true, told me that he felt like I didn't love him. That hit me like a brick. I don't know why I didn't leave right then and there. So how did I leave? The icing on the cake was when I got a phone call from my dad telling me my grandma wasn't well and that I needed to come home right away. It was a coincidence he called, because we had just gotten into an argument over something ridiculous. But when I was talking on the phone with my dad, he was trying to get my attention. When I hung up the phone, he snapped. He was angry that I was on the phone with my dad and not paying attention to him. To top it off, his mom took his side and did not support me at all. She often treated me like crap, so I wasn't surprised. That's when I knew I had to get away, and I was relieved when my dad and my brother came to get me. My dad told me I could call him for any reason. He was right the entire time, and I didn't listen. I blame my ex for that. He completely betrayed my trust and brainwashed me. When I went home, my phone was blowing up with text messages the next day. I turned my phone off, and I didn't touch it for a few days. I didn't want to be bothered, and I needed time away from my phone to focus on myself and be with my family. My dad wrote me a letter to read one day, giving me advice about what I should do and think about. I still have that letter, and I read it from time to time. A few days later, I was ready to make my decision. I went back to the apartment with my dad and brothers, and I packed my things, and I left. I sent an email to my ex and told him I was coming to get my things. I chose to email him so that I wouldn't have to deal with all the missed calls and texts all at once while I was trying to write this email. I got maybe 1 or 2 emails begging me to talk and asking if my parents were making me talk to someone else. He was often worried my parents were making me talk to someone else because my parents didn't like him. I finally opened my phone to find all the missed calls and texts. I told my close friends, and they all told me that I made the right decision to leave. 30 calls and texts in one day is harassment. After I moved back home, I never felt more relieved and free in my life. For the first time in my life, I was completely happy just being by myself. I didn't need a man or a woman to make me happy. I just needed my space, my family, and my pets. This entire experience taught me that relationships are not the key to happiness. You have to be happy with yourself before you can find someone who is equally happy to be with. My ex contacted me a couple of times after I moved home, begging me to take him back, and he would do anything to get me to come back. But when I told him what he could do to make me reconsider, he did what he always did. He made excuses. Our last conversation ended with him blaming me for everything that went wrong. No surprise, because he's a narcissist. And that's what they do. They blame everyone else for everything that goes wrong in their relationships and their lives. He will never admit to anything he did wrong to me. He will never change, and he is completely fine living the way he wants and living off the government only. He told me if I didn't like it, I could leave, and so that's what I did. I guess he didn't think I would actually go, because he cried and begged me to reconsider. But actions speak louder than words. He can't expect me to change and to come back if he won't change. Yet I was the one who he says needed to change to fit his life. That's another example of a narcissist. Now a year has gone by, and I'm doing much better than ever. My family is good. I have a nice new basement apartment and a great new boyfriend who actually loves me, understands me, and treats me like a princess. He has ambition, a job, and a wonderful family too that loves me back. And the best part, my parents love him too. So that is my story of survival from emotional abuse. I hope this story encourages everyone who is in a similar situation to seek help. And remember that you deserve better. If they are not willing to do anything to do better and to better their own lives and only want you to live a certain way, they have a problem. You don't. And it's better to be single and to be happy than to be in a relationship and be absolutely miserable. Because my life could have been completely different.